Welcome to the CSRUniverse's Leaders Talk segment. You know that in the last 1 decade or so, Indian social sector has been witnessing the growth of a vibrant and thriving startup ecosystem. And it is here where higher educational institutions have acted as agents of change and also as catalysts to further boost this growth. And these institutions to develop and create technology enabled solutions way more advanced than traditional business methods, and which can actually have long lasting social impact. And one of the earliest business incubators of India has been the NSRCEL, or the Nadathur S. Raghavan Center for Entrepreneurial Learning. It is IIM Bangalore's flagship business incubator that is a non-profit institution purely focused on aiding creators and funding startups in their journey. And today we are very, very privileged to have with us Mr. Nachiket Kulkarni. He's the Senior Program Manager at IIMB NSRCEL to share his thoughts and insights on the tech-enabled solutions that NSRCEL is providing to the social sector domain, particularly nurturing and boosting those startups that aim at creating meaningful social impact. And we look forward to his thoughts on NSRCEL's mission and roadmap for the future. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Kulkarni.
Thank you for having me, Ruchika.
And just to tell my viewers, let me share with them that recently NSRCEL signed an MOU with Yunus Social Business Fund, Bengaluru, to encourage and support social businesses in rural India. So while NSRCEL is leading the incubation program, Yunus Social Business Fund will be facilitating the modules on investment readiness, working capital management, and exposure to different forms of funding. Hence, we are fortunate to be joined by Mr. Sai Kumar, who's the Senior Portfolio Associate at Yunus Social Business, to discuss his organization's role in supporting and scaling social businesses that are intrinsically working with rural population. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Kumar.
Thank you, Ruchika. Thank you for having me.
And I'm also very delighted to share that we have with us representatives of the startups that NSRCEL is working in tandem with to support local and small businesses, and especially the marginalized sections of society. And they're doing some commendable and laudable work in creating sustainable livelihoods for them. So we are very, very happy to be joined by Ms. Sunita Suhas and Mr. Suhas Ramegowda, who are the founders of Indian Yards, and Mr. Dharamjeet Kumar, co-founder of Ayang Trust. A very, very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. So yeah, we were talking about the MOU that you signed with the Yunus Business Fund. So I would want Mr. Sai Kumar also, as well as you, to shed some light on the, first of all, the inception and genesis of this rural entrepreneurship incubation program, and what role are both of you are going to play in this partnership.
Great. So I'll start with the genesis and then hand it over to Sai with the need of the partnership. So as mentioned, one of the important verticals here at NSRCEL is social entrepreneurship. While we have sort of a long-term commitment in doing multiple cohorts in technology-driven social innovations with one anchor partner in the corporate space, Capgemini, we started dabbling with the fact that how do we go deeper in parallel spaces, right? Like, and then post-COVID, we realized that if there is one challenge that we've been noticing is for decades is the urban-rural divide in the country. Right? We still know that 65% of Indians live in rural India. We know that human development indices are quite disparate when you do an urban-rural comparison. And while the brainstorming was happening, we obviously read about the issues with the migrant laborers and the reverse migration that happened. So our data shows that around 5 million people lost jobs during the pandemic, and a lot of them sort of migrated back to their hometowns. And so as an incubator, a leading incubator, our responsibility is to catalyze innovation. And one thing that we realized is NSRCEL as an incubator has been a very urban-focused incubator. And here was an opportunity to start looking at incubation innovation ecosystem beyond the large cities. And at the same time, we also started seeing founders, seeing people going back to hometowns and probably noticing a problem right there and coming up with a solution with a product being manufactured in a small town and probably sold in larger cities and abroad. So this was the genesis. We thought that fine. I mean, we start scratching the tip of the iceberg, and we realized that we took a lens where a long-term value creation and a long-term job creation in rural remote areas with social impact as the primary goal was basically the primary goal of conceptualizing this. And while we started conceptualizing and brainstorming the program, while we started looking at the applications that were coming in, and when we met our portfolio, we realized a lot of ventures are in the early stage, very early stage, probably not necessarily VC ready during the incubation or even towards the incubation, towards the end of the incubation. But we were confident that, with our service delivery of incubation, we will actually get them to a point where they will have regular cash flows, they will have repeated clients, and they have constant revenues to boast about. And still being in the impact focus cohort, we realized that they may probably never appeal to a conventional VC, which is investing in a ever growing startup and in a cash burn model. So then we took it back to the dashboard and sort of started speaking to different players in the ecosystem. And we also realized that venture capital is just one asset class, but we need to look beyond that. And since a lot of these ventures, once we got to know them, we saw that their revenues were growing, they have repeated clients. Debt as an instrument is something we wanted the ventures to be exposed to. And when you combine debt and impact as two keywords, there are not too many players in the world doing that. And especially in India, Yunus Business Fund has a very, very strong name in doing so, as because they've done this, even with their genesis and the founder, the inspirational Professor Mohammed Yunus, and they've done this incubation and investment work in other countries. So that is when we met Yunus Social Business Fund, and Sai and Suresh and the team were very interested in to collaborate, and we identified together what areas they can intervene in. And I'll leave it to probably handle it to Sai to sort of probably bring in their line of thinking as to why they partnered with us and how they conceptualize their interventions.
Right. So, Mr. Sai, we would like to have your thoughts and inputs.
Sure. Thanks, Nachiket. And I think, Ruchika, this question is something that has been driving us throughout, where we are trying to play a role where probably commercial capital or formal lines of credit or formal debt sources are not available to certain players in the ecosystem. So that's where I think we came up with, that's where our target focus today is. These early stage companies who have certain stability in their cash flows, who have a proven business model, and who also have some bit of repeatability in their business. So that's where our target segment is. And when Nachiket and the NSRCEL team approached, we were very happy to partner. That's something that we are looking forward to. Not that we would immediately invest in these companies, but we would like to play a part in growing them, in enabling them to reach a stage where they would be confident enough, and they would have the access to commercial capital. So that's where I think even the modules, or the way the modules and the investor readiness program was structured. Coming to NSRCEL specifically, I think this was a very interesting cohort. We are also aware of a number of other cohorts that they run, something like a non-profit cohort, women's only cohort, and a lot of those programs. But something that specifically interested us was this rural incubation thing, because this is one sector or one segment of the business where more and more what we are seeing is that unlike commercial businesses where there is one founder and then there are a number of employees who work for that founder, this is a model where there are actually founders and they are creating micro entrepreneurs under them. right? And these entrepreneurs themselves are going and setting up businesses or something larger. So overall in the impact space, great, there are more players, there is more impact per se happening, but an underlying thought or an underlying connection that's being drawn is that more livelihoods are getting generated, and that's meeting the larger aim of both our organizations together.
Great. So that's what I was asking. Like, can you elaborate on the exact role? How are you assisting these startups? So the question goes to you as well as to Nachiket.
Sure. Okay, I'll take that from the YSB side. So from the YSB side, we are part of the program in two ways. One is we are part sponsors of the program. A more crucial way is that we would try and enable these startups with knowledge, with skill sets in terms of how they can leverage debt in their businesses. Post that, we will be actually funding two of these startups with certain seed capital. This would be again in the form of debt, but we will run it through a rigorous investment process. And once that is done, we would actually fund two of these startups and try and see if we can partner with their journey going forward.
Okay, great. So Nachiket, so I wanted to know what kind of research and study or any kind of survey that was done that led you to focus especially on this sector. Can you elaborate?
Absolutely. So historically, if you see, IIMB has had faculty and research working in this space, right? We have someone called Professor Gopal Nayak and someone called Professor Trirochan Shastri who have been working in this space. And as I said, right, COVID was a blessing in disguise in a way where before COVID, NSRCEL was a very urban focused incubator with ventures from Bangalore, Mumbai, and Chennai and Delhi. But with us pivoting, to a digital service delivery model with a lot of our modules going online, a lot of our workshops going online, we started getting applications literally from all over the country. Like, in fact, right now NSRCEL across programs literally has one venture from Kargil, one venture from Nagarkoil, from Porbandar and Agartala as well. And in fact, in social the parallel program we run, we have someone from Berlin as well. Now, what we saw in our research is, while we started seeing applications of entrepreneurs coming, we also validated it with the fact that in terms of infrastructure, rural India seemed to be pretty ready for manufacturing, at least, right? It may be debatable if you say that rural India is ready for consumption. It is in certain products, but I think with multiple government schemes, special economic zones, and certain amount of reverse migration, there suddenly is an availability of labor. And this research sort of coupled with the fact that we got some really interesting applications and certain founder stories that you will hear from the founders themselves, gave us confidence that yes, with the kind of history that we have, and with the backing of ecosystem players like YSB and our IIMB faculty, we would be ready to look at ventures coming from multiple corners of the country. And hence we are sitting with examples like Ayang, which is in Majuli Island, or Brahmaputra, and Indian Yards, which is in Kunur. So that was our lens. And primarily, as Sai mentioned, it became sort of a cohort where a majority of the cohort is manufacturing either food products or artisanal products, or has a go-to-market through their website or digital marketing, but is manufacturing the products, employing people locally. And we also looked at who they're employing, right? It's not about just, it's not about just employing. A lot of the ventures that we have in this cohort are employing women, number one, but also employing them for the first time. A lot of the women who are employed are probably have their first ever jobs with these ventures, and are also the sole breadwinners of the family. In fact, with certain, especially with these two ventures, an example, there are also tribal women who are being employed. So we looked at lens beyond just general employment, and we looked at how a long-term impact can be created. And as I said, one program is not going to be enough. It's just scratching the surface. So we thought it is right time for NSRCEL to challenge itself in a new sector.
Great work there. So let's talk to our startups over here. So we have Ms. Sunita Suhas and Mr. Suhas Ramegowda from the Indian Yards, which actually looks at upskilling women from the communities in the Nilgiris to become fine macrame artisans. And they also enable them to become an independent producer group. So very warm welcome to both of you. So could you please tell us what exactly are you looking at, whom are you trying to help, and what are the problems or social issues that you're trying to address with your startup?
Sure. Thank you, Ruchika. So we are based in the Nilgiris, Kunu, Rooty towns being the more popular names that people would know. We are using craft and commerce to generate equitable income for women from both rural and indigenous communities. When I say indigenous, essentially I'm referring to the tribal communities here in the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I said craft and commerce is because we're using craft. We're upskilling these women into first generation artisans, using the word macrame, but we've gone beyond macrame. Macrame is one craft. Today we are upskilling them with 5 to 6 other crafts like embroidery, crochet, knitting, needlework, quilting, so on and so forth. Basically, we are setting up individual clusters in the hills, upskilling them, enabling them with the resources that they need to produce these products in their respective homes, and then we provide the market linking so that there is an economic output out of this whole effort, which makes the solution more sustainable. So that's essentially what we're doing, and they're all first generation artisans. Their alternate source of livelihood till now has been daily wage labor. And in many cases, they have not stepped out to do that as well.
Yeah, but prior to that, they were also foraging. So this, yes, all the women are first generation artisans.
Okay, great. So this is a great way to revive the old traditions, handicrafts of India. So what were the initial hiccups or challenges that you faced?
I think first and foremost is, neither Sunita or me, we've been typical urbanites living the corporate dream,
Right.
our jobs to do something meaningful. We moved to the mountains, to live off the grid. And that's when we stumbled upon this problem. And then while we were solving the problem, the enterprise was born. So in that sense, we were accidental entrepreneurs. We never set out to be entrepreneurs. So we haven't studied entrepreneurship. We don't have a business background. We are, our families don't belong to business, so on and so forth. So we really were new in this space. So we had to learn a lot of things ourselves, in which we did in the beginning. So I think a lot of information, a lot of help, a lot of frameworks, a lot of know-how is something that we, missed out, when we started off. I wouldn't really call it as a bad thing, because I think it helped us in some ways. But that's where NSRCEL, came in to fill in that gap, in terms of giving that academic exposure to how do you go about build a sustainable long-term enterprise, that can be scaled. So I think, that was the gap that we had, and that's where NSRCEL came in.
Great. Abhishek, I believe you had a few questions as well.
Hi, can I ask the question?
Yes, please, Abhishek.
Okay, so mine is with Mr. Suhas. So, sir, have you you must be working with these tribal women, Toda women. Nilgiri is also known for a lot of eucalyptus oil and local produce. So my question is regarding when these local produce, which are essentially very traditionally produced stuff in a particular geography, when they go out in the market, there are a lot of duplicate products that are also comes along with the authentic products. So how do you deal with that sort of thing so that the real revenue that you earn through the product always goes back to the real generator of the products?
Yeah, so a couple of corrections. So we don't largely or restrict ourselves to work with the Toda community, because the Toda community has been around, and in terms of the support that they have, they have some avenues already. We are focusing on the other indigenous communities.
There are 5 communities here.
In the Nilgiris. Toda is one among them. There are 4 others who are absolutely ignored. So we are working with the 4
And
other
actually,
communities.
nobody knows who the other 4 are.
Yeah.
Everybody only.
If you could just elaborate a little bit about
Yeah,
them.
so there are Irulas, there are Kurumbas, there are Badagas, and there are Kotas. These are 4 other communities that live in the Nilgiris, not just the Todas. But Todas is what has received the attention. Nothing wrong with that, but yeah, our focus is on the other 4 communities. Now, specific to your question in terms of how do we deal with plagiarism or things being copied, quite honestly, we're not bothered about that, because the craft that we are teaching is not something that is very traditional to these communities. In fact, these communities don't have a craft that is very, that's something that's traditional to them. Kurumbas, for example, have largely been bee keepers or honey hunters. So there is no craft involved with that community. They have a painting, but it's a very small segment of their entire tradition. Similarly, the other communities don't really have a traditional craft that has been, that's something that we could revive, or that's something that would bring to the fore. So what we have done is we have, basically taken global crafts, and we're upskilling these women with global craft, which have a contemporary application, which is what Urban India is looking for. So we're trying to marry what the market wants versus what the women can offer. And that's where we've been very conscious in terms of selecting craft that the women can learn and can apply to contemporary needs. Also, all of these crafts are meant to be completely handmade, which means no use of machinery, no use of tools, and they can be easily produced in their houses, which are obviously, have small spaces. So we have basically kept the beneficiary at the center of the solution, and that's how we've gone about selecting crafts which apply to them, which they can apply to contemporary needs. So that's how we've gone about doing it. So none of this craft is really proprietary in that sense. So if anybody,
that looks like a lot of sustainable way of doing it. Like you are bringing the design element and the product from outside, and then going back to them, training them, scaling them, and then asking them to produce the product, and then taking them back to the market.
Absolutely.
Yes, and the model that we use is women only work from their homes. They do not travel and come to our resource center, because we are in the mountains and traveling is extremely difficult.
And it also helps the women to manage the household, manage the children, and earn a livelihood. So we don't want to establish a factory here in the Nilgiris. We want to establish a decentralized model, which is a more sustainable way of working for these women.
Okay. So, and also, do you envisage that in the future, like maybe like 2-3 years from now on, you will stop hand-holding them and they will become self-sustainable small units or entrepreneurs at the
Yes, that is our dream.
And that is where we are working towards, because, basically what we're doing here is not a single entity that we're building here. We're building an ecosystem where there's an entity that would upskill them and enable them. There's an entity that's giving them the market linking support. And then there's an entity that they will own, which is essentially the production entity. So it's not just about we upskilling them and employing them, so that's why I'm not using the word employing here. And Nachiket, mentioned this a little earlier.
That's what the social entrepreneurship is all about.
Exactly. So this is not about employing them or creating just jobs for them. It is about making them entrepreneurs, so that this solution transcends, across generations.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, Ruchika.
Yeah, so we were talking about market linkages. So what platforms or channels are you using for creating these?
So we are, quite available online. So online obviously is our go-to channel. So multiple online channels. So there in India now, we have gone beyond an Amazon and Flipkart, and there are multiple curated online marketplaces like a Jaipur, like an Okai, like Brown Living, who are doing a great job in terms of connecting makers with the customers.
Right.
So we are available on all these channels. We have our own website. We also have a physical store footprint. So there are a chain of curated physical stores which provide a certain experience to a purpose-driven consumer, who can come and touch and feel. So we're present on these physical stores as well. And there are these exhibitions, pop-ups that are again meant to bring the consumer and the maker together. We use that as a channel as well. So it's a combination of online, physical stores, and pop-ups which essentially we use to reach our consumers.
Great. Thank you so much for telling me all that, because generally what happens is when we go to exhibitions, it's like a one-time shopping experience for the consumer. So there is a challenge of, the consumer not buying that handicraft or that art again. So do you also have anything, a solution to this problem? How can you address this problem so that more consumers come forward to buy more products from these artisans?
Yeah, so for us, the way we see it, the physical store and the pop-ups are an opportunity for the consumer to touch and feel, and meet the makers. But the most sustainable and the longer term solution we see is through the online channels and online platforms. So consumers can use the physical retail stores and these exhibitions to come and actually see the product. But when they want to buy the product again, they always have an online channel which they can sit in their house and order, and the product reaches them in their house. So a combination of these two is what I think is the solution.
Great. So we also have Mr. Dharamjeet Kumar, who's the co-founder of Ayang Trust. And as you're talking about market linkages, what Ayang Trust is doing is that it is providing training as well as market access to the farmers in the Northeast to help increase their productivity and income. So, Mr. Dharamjeet, I would like you to, elaborate on exactly the kind of social issues and the problems that you are trying to address with your startup.
Right. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ruchika. My name is Dharamjeet. So we started Ayang Trust in the year 2017. Our organization is based out of a place called Majuli Island. It's an island on Brahmaputra. I think the only island district in the country. It has a population of about 170,000, and majority of them are from the tribal communities,
right,
particularly a tribe called the Missing tribe. So our work is mostly with the Missing tribe. So initially we started working in the larger development space. We started working in the education front, like we wanted to make quality education accessible to all the children in this place. We started with a school, and we realized that the challenges was mostly to do with the economics there. There was like abundance of natural resources, and particularly the communities, particularly the women, they were skilled in traditional livelihood skills, yet there were poverty, and every year the island faces massive flood. There's like huge destruction. So people were living at a very economic, difficult position, and that's where, through our understanding in the past 3 years, we realized that there's a need of a sustainable livelihood intervention. So from there, what we started doing was to collectivize the producers. They were like all, the market was all scattered. They were individual. They're trying to do by themselves, mostly daily wage labor, small agriculture business they had. So what we were trying to do was to get them together and focus on the major crops, the potential crops that they have, and as well as the skill of handloom weaving, which all the women here, they are skilled and they are doing, but that is not passing to the next generation. So what we tried doing was just to bridge the skill gap. So with the farmers, what we tried doing was to get the potential product which has more market, which has more higher market value than the paddy or the dal that they were cultivating, and get their skills to produce that. And with the handloom community, what we were trying to do is to bring those designs, the designs that they were doing, to make their own traditional wear, like a mekhla chadar, which they wear in Assam, the women wear, to bring those designs in a wide range of products such as cushion cover, curtain, table runner, and all of that. So those were the skill intervention, collectivizing them together and building a collective, so that can be self-sustained. So in that process, we were fortunate to come across NSRCEL, and we were very much experienced with the impact work in terms of how non-profit operates in this domain, where the solution was to do with the market. There was like a huge struggle in terms of how to reach out to the customer, who are the main consumers of this product. We had understanding, we wanted to get it into a more broader perspective out there. So what we are now trying to do is to, in the part of this incubation, the brand Lakope that has come out. So under the Lakope branding, we are setting up a farmer producer organization, and their products are being branded, and being promoted by this brand name Lakope. So it's an initiative to bridge the market gap, to help our producers get the fair returns on the labor they do in making those products.
Okay, great. So Dharamjeet ji, what is the kind of funding support that you're looking at, and what are your plans ahead for your startup?
Right, thank you. So funding in terms of, we need resources to train more of our producers, to reach out to more number of them. We run resource center. We have like our handloom centers where they come and get the basic training done, how they can upgrade their skill to a better looms that they can purchase and work out from their home. There's a support required in terms of bridging the market capital. So we want to invest on the marketing front. We have our e-commerce website. Want to reach scale the reach out of it. Okay. So those are the few. This is both like a infrastructure requirements, the capital requirements, as well as the working capital requirement. And that part, the workshops recently we had with Mr. Sai is here. So that actually broadened our perspective to understand where are those finances ready. So we are reaching out to them to know that once the need of that working capital is cracked, there's enormous opportunity. Once that is there, entire producers of the district can be together and they can have their own brand that can sustain by themselves. So that are the few requirements actually.
Okay, so I would like to come back to Nachiket, and I just wanted to talk about the fact that that a startup journey is a very difficult one to sustain. And we've seen that many times around 90 to 95% startup fail within 2 to 3 years of their starting. So how does your program prepare the participants against this risk? How do you make it a sustainable endeavor?
I'm glad you asked that question, because that journey is even more difficult for a social impact entrepreneur, especially in geographies like, where Indian IARC team and the IIM team is working on. So NSRCEL interventions usually are in a four-pronged approach. One is the structured incubation program itself, which is a combination of modules, which are part academic in the sense where some of them are classrooms and some of them are workshops, like how Sai did for us. So structured incubation program, the program itself is designed in consultation with the entrepreneurs. Probably 50% of the component is what we actually do a needs assessment with their entire portfolio and sort of draw what common requirements are. And other 50% is sort of composed with what a standard industry requirement is. Like, for instance, we know that something like a working capital management or something like funding readiness is pretty obvious for ventures, but then we have to go deep dive and think as to what exactly that is. So modules, the kind of modules that fall under a structured incubation program, like how they are going through, will include modules like customer profiling and discovery, digital marketing, alternative financing, building sales channels. So that's one bit in our four-pronged approach. The second bit, which is an important component, is mentors. So for all the 9 ventures, we assign mentors who are subject matter experts in the space, who have probably run ventures in the past or who have exposure to the impact space or producing a product and selling, from a rural community to out there. So the mentors spend around 2 hours a month with the enterprises or with the founders, and that builds sort of a long-term rapport and also a sounding board for the entrepreneurs to go and sort of consult with these subject matter experts as to whatever challenges they're facing. The third component is networks and alumni. So NSRCEL itself, NSRCEL social entrepreneurship itself has around 60 odd incubated ventures in the past.
Okay.
And NSRCEL overall has around 1,200 ventures that have been incubated in the past. And one of the things we can leverage as an incubator here is our exposure to entrepreneurs, even from the non-impact side. So if you look at the boot camp that the rural, the current cohort we are addressing sort of attended. We had someone, a venture called Go Desi, which actually started out as an impact venture, but went on and raised commercial capital at a very significant level. But the story sort of resonated with a lot of our potential heroes, if you will, because they started out also from employing women in a small town, in a small community. And they marketed their product, and now they are, an $8 million valuation company. So our job is to bring in these networks, and we believe that the networks can be with respect to different fields. But I think us being an incubator and access to other hero entrepreneurs is more relatable. The journeys of other entrepreneurs are more relatable and more aspirational to our entrepreneurs. So that's the third component. The fourth component is something we already spoke about, is the funding ecosystems. And that is where someone like a Yunus Business Fund comes in. So we take this four-pronged approach and we say that, whatever said and done, overall, if you want to sum it in a sentence, we would want to call it an entrepreneur first model, because we believe that, if I upskill an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter whether he or she succeeds or doesn't succeed in their current venture, but the DNA of entrepreneurship is embedded in them once they go through an NSRCEL program.
Okay, great. So, Saiji, I wanted to ask you, what are the challenges that you see, and generally when it comes to rural entrepreneurship programs? What are the main challenges, and how are you planning to address them, especially, in scaling or, giving them financial advice? So could you please elaborate on that?
Sure, Ruchika. And that's a very interesting question, because you specifically mentioned rural enterprises. So I'll stick to answering those. I think the first and foremost, and I've in the workshop as well, I've mentioned this, is awareness. Because one, not many people, even in the urban space, not many people understand that debt is a source of capital. Everyone is in the valuation game, and they want to raise money only through equity, but they do not understand that equity is a costlier affair. It's way cheaper to raise debt. Now, I'm not promoting YSB here, but these are facts. You can ask any finance professional out there. The second thing, and the more important thing, is that while we know that there are a lot of these government programs, let's say, focused on, so whether it is considering agriculture and food processing as a priority sector, or whether it is having institutions like NABARD and any such quasi-government organizations as well. What we are more and more seeing is that there's also requirement of a private capital or commercial capital that needs to complement any kind of government schemes that are there, and that's where our role in terms of helping these organizations is more relevant. The third thing would be that there are always challenges with regards to taking these structured products or readily available products as well to a rural setting, because they can pose operational challenges. There could be things around. So I'll just give an example. We are funding an FPO right now in Andhra Pradesh in one space there. However, for them, they want to draw down rupees 10 lakhs on a particular day, because they want to, they want the ability to pay their farmers and procure the goods, on the same day. However, the banking restriction there is that if the FPO needs 10 lakhs in cash, they need to inform the bank 1 day or 2 days in advance. Right. So there are ecosystem challenges as well, which while we talk about everything through UPI or through the digital mechanisms, there are on ground operational challenges which get magnified in a rural setting. And considering all of this is where we try and come up with solutions to answer these kind of issues.
Okay, so on that note, I think I have a question for both the startups over here. So do you also face any kind of problem when it comes to getting these communities to understand their financial needs, or giving them advices as to how to market their products? So what exactly are you doing to solve these problems at your end?
So Dharam, if you're okay, I can go first.
Yes, please.
So yeah, so in terms of the market linking activities, the stage that we're in, is we're not even taking that to the producers. We're not even taking that to the communities. Okay. We are taking care of that, set of activities, which means right now the focus is only in terms of upskilling them and enabling them to produce. The market linking is completely done by us. But yes, there is some sort of education, some sort of sensitization that we still have to give, because like I said earlier, all of them are first generation artisans. They're working for the first time. the interface or, the situation where they're making something and it is, traveling across the globe has never happened to them before. So the sensitizing bit about standardization, quality control, sticking to timelines, all of this is obviously a challenge, but we are working with them in terms of walking through these challenges and basically taking them from point A to point B. So that's the kind of work that's happening. That's where all our efforts are going into right now. Market linking is a distant, them doing marketing themselves is distant at this point in time. We want them to do this maybe 5 years down the line, but right now the focus is essentially to upskill and enable, to produce.
What about issues when it comes to, incorporating digital or technological advancements, also in the processes and modern techniques, if you're trying to, educate them about that? Are there any challenges there as well?
Absolutely not. I think, at least in our experience working with these communities, I think there is the eagerness to learn, and there is eagerness to do well for themselves. So whatever it takes to do well is what they would put their hands into. So we have seen a lot of enthusiasm, whether it is even financial literacy for that matter. We organize conversations with these communities, with these women. We work with HDFC as a bank, so we have these folks coming in often to talk to them about creating accounts, how they transact, so on and so forth. We have tied up with an insurance company, which then talks about savings and insurance and what plans they can take, etc. So they are always excited about learning these things, because at the end of the day they want to do better than what they're doing today. So I have not seen technology or these new things being a deterrent or being a challenge for them.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so whether it's a 20-year-old or a 50-year-old, there's the same amount of enthusiasm that we see.
They are open to using them. Nachiket ji, just one very important question that I had to ask you was, so IIMB is investing its resources on training and growing these social startups. How do you make a program sustainable? Do you also get support from other corporates for your incubation programs?
Definitely. So around probably majority of the programs in and under NSRCEL, and specifically also under NSRCEL Social, are corporate funded. For instance, the anchor program here that I handle, which is in parallel with this program, is what we call NSRCEL Impact Orbit, which is the anchor funder is Capgemini CSR. My peer teams are running programs in the sustainability vertical, again, in partnership with Alstom. There's a mobility program in partnership with Maruti. So in most instances, and of course, our two large flagship programs are women entrepreneurship programs, again, in partnership with Goldman Sachs and Kotak. So definitely corporates are playing a role, but I think we would want more corporates to come in and play this role, because I think the fact that CSR money is deployed, and in some cases it's also strategy capital, but the fact that CSR is able to deploy money for an incubator like us to further support startups is sort of, I would say, playing a very, very crucial role in not only ensuring that the right education goes to the right startups, but also I think over long term, it definitely reduces the mortality rate of startups, because we're able to play around for a long term, and we're able to support startups at the right time, so that they at least are able to, in our terms, we can say that we're able to make babies walk at the end of the program. And that capital for that length is supported by corporates. For this specific program, once we conceptualized the program, we thought we shouldn't waste too much time. We just wanted to get to solve it. We had deployed some capital internally for this, so we definitely bootstrapped this program. Then we started meeting a few impact funds like Yunus Business Fund, who will definitely not be able to sort of deploy the capital for covering the entire program. But now that we're deep into this program, we want to sort of finish this one cohort and open to talk to corporates early next year to do a repeat program in focusing on social innovations from rural India. Because as I said, one program is not going to move the needle either for the startups or for us in developing the ecosystem. We want local players to be involved, like the government, like local stakeholders. We want corporates to be involved, not only in terms of funding a program, or funding a startup, but also in terms of being service providers. For
Right.
instance, one of the challenges that both Dharamjeet and Sunita and Suhas have mentioned is, actually having a multiple courier services reaching their towns, which is not very easy. Like you would assume that, an Amazon does it or a Flipkart does it, but we need more options and we need more service providers. In the same way, we need service providers in the market linkage space as well. Like platforms like Okai and Larton are really helpful, but we need more and probably even tools in actually doing org development, things like that. So corporates, definitely we want them to sort of start engaging and looking at solving social innovations in the rural area, and definitely actually supporting incubation programs like ours in unearthing these innovations and scaling them.
Okay. So on that note, I would want all of you, I'll start with Nachiket again, to share the vision for NSRCEL, and then Mr. Sai Kumar, his vision, Dharamjeet, and followed by Suhas and Sunita to please share their vision and their plans ahead. So Nachiket, we'll start with you.
Sure. So I would speak for NSRCEL social entrepreneurship vertical. The vision here is to become the largest social enterprise incubator for the country. And we are already almost there, in the sense where in the next 3 years, we want to incubate around 200 ventures. Technology for impact will be the primary vertical with around 120 odd ventures. Rural, like the cohort we have, is one of the sectors we want to go deeper in, apart from circular economy. So these are the 3 verticals we'll be looking at. Since rural and circular economy are fairly new spaces, we will stick to smaller cohorts. We will stick to a really deeper engagement, a longer engagement, 9 months. But again, as I said, doing programs is not going to be sufficient. The larger goal is to build the ecosystem and the stack itself, which will have service providers, just I mentioned, which will have players like Yunus Social Business Fund engaging with us, and many more. Getting governments to collaborate to help the startups is another thing. So I feel incubation programs, as I mentioned, and apart from this, building these service providers and building a stack, so that if a social enterprise or a social entrepreneur wants to know that I want to succeed, or I want to sort of have a room to play, they know whose door they should be knocking.
Right. So Sai, next, please let us know the vision and roadmap for your future.
Sure. So I think at YSB, we are more focused on, we are focused exactly on that, that missing middle. So where startups have a proven model and they are in search of capital. We do not play in very mature spaces where, let's say, once they cross a particular level of revenue, which is, let's say, above 50 crores or so, they can get access to regular commercial capital there, right? So that's where we are at. Over the next 5 years, we currently have supported over 15 businesses, and all of these businesses in the last 6 years have been with us and continue to work with us, even though, let's say, their initial loans have been repaid. They continue to work with us because they like the way YSB is, and all of the terms and offerings that YSB has provided with them. The other, so over the next 5 years, we would in India, we would like to grow to, let's say, as a number, we would like to move to over 70 startups, and our focus is more to go deeper into each startup, help them across all of their working capital as well as debt requirements, and not not spray and paint to how many ever startups we can. So our objective is to go deeper and to understand or help organizations with their financial requirements. The other aspect that we would also like to touch upon here is not just the financial part, which is the lending side of things. We also like to provide with non-financial support, where there is technical assistance, there is all other kinds of support that we provide to our portfolio companies, be it in terms of mentorship, be it in terms of compliance and legal aspects. So there are many aspects that we cover in our technical assistance, and that's where a combination of all of this is what we would like to provide to all our portfolio companies.
Splendid. So Dharamjeet ji, over to you. What are your plans for the future?
Right. Yeah, thank you. So what we're actually looking for is to make Lacope a household name, a company which can provide the basic product for daily needs such as rice, oil, spices, and other home needs, home decor needs such as cushion, curtain cover, curtains, on all kind of textile needs. A brand, a company which is owned by the women producers itself, and a company which can accommodate all the women suppliers of Northeast India, a company that can market all the produce that is happening here and directly getting to the customer in terms of the quality and just bridging the gap between the customer and the producer. Yeah. So that's the larger vision.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. So over to you, Suhas ji and Sunita ji.
Yeah, for us, our vision is fairly simple. So we want to enable women from every rural household into economic mainstream. And today we've started this sort of a solution in Nilgiris, but over the next few years, we definitely want to include communities from across the country into this ecosystem. So we want to expand the ecosystem from Nilgiris to across the country. And along the way, we also want to change a little bit of a perspective from a consumer point of view in terms of craft itself, the craft domain itself, because the craft domain for many people is a dead end. It's not current, it's not relevant. We want to change that perspective. We want to say that craft can be contemporary and craft can be utility driven. So we want to change that perspective from a consumer point of view as well. Yeah, that's essentially what we're trying to do.
That's wonderful. And thank you all so much. I think, this kind of collaborative philanthropy is the need of the hour. So as to, help these people, these marginalized sections of society who have the talent, they just need that little push. And I'm so happy that all of you are trying to, create that meaningful and sustainable livelihood chances for them. Thank you so much for all your valuable time and all the wonderful inputs that you all have given to us. It's a great learning experience for me, at least. And I'm sure other social sector stakeholders would also get to learn so many new things, and how, collaborative mechanisms can actually, build a better and more economically strong India. So thank you so much once again for joining us and giving us this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful talking to you.